Andy, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for the invite, Josh. I'm
Oh,
really glad to be. No one invites me on podcasts. I have to invite people onto ours, so it's nice to be invited.
oh, it's funny, Andy, because I'd say the exact same thing, and that's why I try to get beautiful people like yourself to join our podcast. So I feel like I have somebody to talk to keep things going. But it's awesome because I know we've been working with the RecWire team for months at this point. I almost think it's been about a year. But you and I have never officially met, so I'm happy you're feeling brave enough to jump on a call with me today so we can actually finally get to meet and publish it to the world so everyone can see it at the same time. Andy, do you want to give everyone a little bit of a recap about you, your story in the recruiting space, and what is RecWired and how you're helping other teams?
Cool. Okay, so I'll deal with those three questions in one reply. I've been in staffing or recruiting, as we call it in the UK, for 25 years. I started a brand called Huxley Associates in '99. I was a recruiter from trainee through to manager. Enjoyed it, but I think my skill was always around business systems, process, the wider piece. So I got made commercial manager at a brand, and then I got commercial director for the group. I was always working on cool projects, whether it was the internationalization of our business, but a lot of the time it was CRM projects, ERP projects, stuff that I had no qualification to do other than the fact I knew the S3 business pretty well and I knew how to recruit pretty well. So I worked at that firm for 20 years, really enjoyed my time, probably had about 4 or 5 different careers during that 20 years. So it felt like 4 or 5 different jobs. I founded my consulting firm, Rexpan, in March 2020 at the start of lockdown. That was great. So managed to grow that out luckily. And but also we started what was then the Lockdown Leadership Network with my partners, Dalter and Charlotte. We were at the end of a Zoom call on a Friday night with a load of recruiters drinking in their gardens during lockdown. And myself and Dalter thought we could do this. We could build a group. We should build a community to navigate COVID, and we did. So we rebranded after lockdown finished to Required, and Required is a group of approximately 850 to 900 founders who want to work together and share information primarily.
COVID was 2 years ago, I think, at the end, at least from Canada side. I know we were locked down a little bit longer than a lot of other places were, but 800 members over that 2-3 year span, that's pretty incredible to see, like, the growth of the community. So it probably speaks to, obviously, the benefit and value to what a lot of individual firms are actually seeing from their side. But that's pretty crazy growth from what you're saying too, right?
I think recruiters are naturally curious. So there's a couple of things. We offer a freemium model. So our barrier is, I think a lot of times, if you're gonna pay for a group, then you've got to make sure you get value and do your due diligence research, and you're competing against other things. We just wanted to share information and get all the great people we knew talking together. And so we've managed to grow it relatively quickly because of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm really excited to chat with you today because I think the really cool part about speaking with yourself from the RecWired side is you don't just have your perspective, but you have the perspective of 800 other firm owners in terms of what they're going through in a day-to-day with this really interesting inflection point that we're seeing across the entire world through AI. And so one of the things that I was really curious of, especially over the last couple of years, how have you seen recruiting in general change as AI is actually starting to become a bigger talking piece? Like, are you seeing this being big benefit to teams? Are you seeing like struggles with the adoption of how teams are thinking about laying it in? Again, super broad question, I apologize, but I'm very curious from your perspective.
Think of recruitment as an evolution. So when I joined the industry in '99, I was told the job boards were we wouldn't need recruiters because everyone could just go on a job board, and the internet would disintermediate the need for people to go and use a recruiter. And then we had LinkedIn was going to come in, and LinkedIn was going to change the world. And then you wouldn't need recruiters to go, and you could just go and hire the staff on LinkedIn. And, we've seen the likes of Hired.com come and go. Recruitment agencies especially are very good at navigating these changes, and they're evolutionary changes, and they've survived to be the fittest. So what they actually do is they take these changes in technology and they use them to their advantage. So to use my previous examples, recruitment firms dominated the job boards, recruitment firms dominated LinkedIn. And recruitment firms will use technology and adopt it to do exactly what they do. And will that look changed? Absolutely. The way the models will change, they will adapt, but they will, as one thing as sure as night follows day, recruitment firms will use AI to their advantage.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think one of the things that I find very interesting, when you just think about like from a global perspective, even 100 years ago, 90% of the workforce worked in agriculture. Interesting example, right? 90% in agriculture. And so if you think about even the transition over the last 100 years, where now more than 90% works in more like blue collar or white collar jobs, you could say. I feel like that exact same transformation, to your point, is really what's starting to get to that precipice across the space today, where it's not that AI will ever replace recruiters, but AI might replace recruiters that are not willing to use AI, because there's going to be such an efficiency gain that teams are going to be able to see doing more with less, scaling their outreach, or maybe even just spending time on some of those more high leverage activities. Now, obviously, inside of what you get to do, you get to hear a ton of feedback, good, bad, and ugly, around how teams are trying to use AI. Now, obviously, you don't need to shout out any awesome or negative companies. We don't need to put people on blast today, but what are some really interesting ways that you've seen teams maybe use AI, or have you seen any pitfalls?
I think the big issue I've seen is that people don't understand AI. Still, I think there's many people, myself as well, grappling around it and trying to come to terms with working out. I think it's like very early days of the internet. It feels amazing, it feels great, but still people are looking at pictures of cats. So, it really is at a stage of probably what we think will be useful won't be useful. And probably the things that we haven't thought of will be the things that really do will make a material difference. So typically, I think the firms that do well are the ones that effectively explain how they use AI to make the use cases. And you guys are a really good example. I'm for all my meetings, plug in Quill, and something that I used to have to do, which was take notes and then work out a follow-up, is done for me. Not only does it save me time, makes me more efficient, makes me better. It updates the ATS, great. Effectively, that's a move on, but that's the equivalent of a move from when you were writing manual notes to writing on a computer in the cloud. Now it's done for you. So what necessarily is the next logical piece from that? So I still think a lot of people are not quite sure about how they're going to use it. The other massive thing that the AI adoption hurdle will have to look at is around adoption and recruiters adopting it. And when I mean adoption, I mean trusting it. That's going to be the big precipice that people are going to have to go through. I'll give you an example. Back in the day, and interestingly, the budgets that we used to have on IT, the things we used to do, we used to spend millions on what you can achieve today for thousands, and it blows my mind. But we built a system, and it sounds a very simple system. From our ATS, someone would put a job on, and automatically we would write an advert and send it out, and we'd send a confirmation to the hiring manager that we've got your order, we're going to do this. So basically it would do two basic things. So it would save the recruiter time having to go through, write an advert, post it, and it would save the recruiter time having to confirm to the manager. And also a good thing to do. We've taken your vacancy, we're working on it. Have we got the brief right? Yes, no. So because we knew who the company was, we knew we knew what the role was, we'd taken the job spec, we knew what the rate was, we could publish it. Could we get that accepted? No. Simply because people were like, I don't really want to publish the rate, or I don't want to put this town because I don't know, my competitor will see that it's in this town, therefore it's this company. And it's not really a job, so we can't send a confirmation. So there's things and nuances around agencies and recruiters. So, but that's the thing, we couldn't trust the data. So because we didn't have our processes locked down, couldn't trust the data, the project became worthless. Yeah. And it's a similar thing that if firms haven't got their data in line, they don't know what their own processes are, how can you either train or allow something to be trained or train itself on something that's broken?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, Andy, especially just from like an automation rule in general. I know one of the big rules of thumb that I've always thought about, even just building and scaling sales teams and businesses on my side, is that you have to do it manually before you automate it, right? Because to your exact point, if you're not going through that painstaking effort of clicking every button and going through to see what that process looks like, you'll start automating it and seeing things start to fall off. And you're like, well, why isn't this working like I wanted? And it's a lot of the time just because we haven't done the work ourselves. Just very candidly, a lot of times. And I think that's a really interesting point that you're thinking about too, because there's a lot of teams that are looking at just automating, using AI, whatever that might look like. But it is interesting that a lot of times they don't even have that process nailed down originally. And so I know you've obviously done a lot of work with systems, operations, building some of those processes out. And I think a lot of those very similar frameworks can be used across any new piece of tech or process you're putting in place. What kind of best practices do you see as you're thinking or working with a team and you're looking at, here's a project that we're looking to implement, whether that's a new system, new talk tracks, new playbook for recruiting, or looking to implement something like an AI system? How would you think about kind of structuring things to make sure that when you actually implement something, you're getting the bang for your buck properly so that you can actually scale when you put that new system in place?
It does come down to that, accepting that this is the process. To use my previous example, that's like ordering a book on Amazon and Amazon ringing you up and you saying, are you sure you want this book? And are you sure this is the address? So what you have to do is you have to create a frame where people have to get it right, or people have to do it right, or the users have to provide the information so that things can run on those rails with trust. So typically, like you say, you map out processes, but you agree the processes, and leadership agrees that these are the processes that we have to follow. You have to be able to trust that everyone will follow in the same direction. And one imagines when you're training AI agents as well, they're going to have to be trusted as well, that they're going to follow processes as well. I think this is a whole new world we're entering. How do you know they won't find a more efficient process that they think's more efficient, but doesn't necessarily work for your organization because they can't see the context of it?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and I think it's going to be, to your point, a really interesting transition, because even as I started learning about more AI stuff, as I was even getting into my role at Quill, I think the most interesting thing that I was learning, and this is from a bit ago, is not only do you have to tell AI what you want it to do, but you have to tell it what you don't want it to do as well, which is so interesting, right? You think about the most literal thing that you could ever deal with in Earth, it's AI, where you give it exact guardrails of this is exactly what I want you to do, but in this situation, don't do this. And I think it's going to be a really interesting way that we have to think about not only our systems and processes, but even just teaching in general, where it's just like when we bring a new hire on board, we want to show them this is exactly what good looks like. Don't really go down this way, just kind of stick over here. But I almost feel like there's more of a literal end to it, where it's, here's exactly what I want you to do, but do not worry or focus anything on this side of things. Only stick to exactly what I'm telling you. And I think it's going to be a very interesting framework for a lot of teams to think about as they're looking to add some of those layers in as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at parallels between artificial intelligence and natural intelligence, it's exactly the same thing. I believe humans are born with two natural fears, falling and loud noises. Everything else is learned. So, and it's the same. So with artificial intelligence, like you say, everything else is learned. So at the end of every prompt should be, don't become Skynet. So that's easy one. If we can get that coached into all of these algorithms, that'd be fantastic as well.
Oh,
so, but definitely having I think having what you want to achieve and really good point, what you don't want to achieve is very important in all of these things. But we really are at the beginning of this, and where this can go is just unbelievable. And if you speak to my business partner Dalter, who thinks we'll all be done in 2 years, this will have taken over our and I don't necessarily agree, but I do think it will be transformative for our industry.
Yeah. Just last couple of questions here on my side here, and I'm very curious to get your take on this as well, because I know there's a couple things around like adoption, but even just based on how teams are scaling. But how could you see like agency leaders ensuring that their teams are actually embracing technology, or maybe even something like AI, without losing what makes them a great recruiter in the first place? Because I think there's a very fine line to that as well.
I think the big thing is humanity will have a definite increased value. There'll be more equity in humanity. So you already need to see it. You just simply open up your LinkedIn, and the amount of people offering you lead services that are clearly AI generated, sequences that you're just like, brilliant, bot, all of that. So, and it's becoming increasingly difficult, one imagines, to actually see through what's real, what's not. But what will really matter is where those human interactions really, really count. I think what you're going to start to see, and we're already seeing it, a friend of mine, Richard Collins, sort of predicted this a long time ago, is almost like a war games between I'm a candidate and therefore I'm looking for a job, even passively or actively. Here's my resume. Make my resume great. Look at this type of job. Automatically go and apply for this. Create a cover letter for it. Make me look authentic. So that then goes into someone's job responses, which is probably sifting. So you've probably got, show me people who have got this, who've got this skill, who've done this, but you've almost then, and then it's going to, potentially then write back. And but at what point does the hiring process become human? And I think you'll see the disruption come through from blue to white collar, but you're going to have effectively robots versus robots for candidacy, and then probably they'll just hire someone they went to college with.
Yep. When I think it's the interesting piece around where I honestly see like the third party recruiting space flourishing so much over the next 10 years, it's the relationship side of it, right? Like, and I've worked in big corporate offices that had big recruiting teams that were all inbound driven. Candidly, I see that almost being the biggest place that can be disrupted, right? Inbound driven leads where I laugh being a salesperson who did a lot of outbound selling in my life. Third-party recruiters are outbound in both directions, right? You're outbound trying to find the clients you're looking to place as well as the candidates you're trying to place. It's the most outbound relationship-driven role that I've ever seen. And I don't think that element could ever be replaced because it takes a lot of skill and effort to not only find a great candidate, but to qualify them and help coach them and teach them how can they be successful in their action meeting with that hiring team. And I think that element of what recruiters can bring is where we need to help them spend the most of their time versus I think that a lot of the other stuff that goes on in just recruiters day to day is the easiest places that the automation can start to be found.
But one of the things actually the AI can do, so what again Dalton's doing with Quill is they are, when he's taking a job spec from the hiring manager, he's basically telling them why you should work there, why you should do, and then he's going and asking it to say, okay, based on the transcript, sell me this company. And that's the brief he's putting out. So it's then, but you need to know to be able to do that. You need to know that's the next best thing. And you could start to codify that. But to be honest as well, I think that whole sort of trust piece is going so far. And the other thing as well is, when the war games potentially can get you to an interview, possibly. Maybe even AI is going to do, I've even seen AI screening interviews. So maybe it then just comes to a final interview or perhaps even offer. And then someone says, I don't want the job, don't want to work in Kentucky. So, but they've been oblivious to this process because they've had an agent working for them. But I think absolutely for certain things as well, there are, it will take inefficiencies out of the market. So for example, very commoditized blue collar recruiting. I suspect, things like hospitality, you've already seen platforms like Uber disrupt that. I think making those platforms a bit more usable, I think AI can probably do that. So you'll start to see it, but definitely not for a long while.
Yeah, that's fair. Fast forward 3 years, Andy. What do you think will make the most successful recruiting agencies, or what do you feel like they will look like? And how do you think that might separate successful agencies then versus maybe what they might even look like today?
So those agencies that have a plan, first and foremost, when I work with firms, first thing I want to do is understand where they want to get to, what their end goal is. So working towards a plan and effectively not jumping around tactically based on what everyone else is doing. So having a real clear plan around what they're going to do. I think the firms that realize there are no silver bullets to success as well, who will realize that it's about developing your people, developing your technology, working hard, delivering great service, listening to your customers. I guess those who've really caught what can supercharge them, and also what is just noise as well is going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
And those who can navigate that will be the winners. And it won't be it's not always the first to market as well. It's not always the first to get there. The fast followers often are the ones that can get there as well. But like I say, this is my fifth rodeo of this type of disruption. Again, every type of disruption is probably been more powerful, but so is the reaction. So yeah, looking forward to what it will look like.
No, I love that. And even just doubling down on some of the points that you made that I'm such a big fan of when it comes to business in general. Simple scales, complex fails. that is tried and true forever. And it's always, you don't win with a single match silver bullet. It's 10,000 golden BBs. It's, to your point, all those little things that you continue to do to have a great customer experience, enhance a product, whatever that might be, is always what's going to help deliver that end result at the end. And I think all the tech, all the fancy, shiny things in there should help complement what you were doing as a team. But it's always going to be those 10,000 golden BBs that's going to help drive that end result.
Yeah, you're spot on, and what you're describing there, it complements it. It doesn't. It's not a shortcut to it. Mm-hmm. In terms of the ability to use this tech to do what you do better and faster, absolutely. But it's not that it's not going to be able to replace. I think it has the real ability to up people's games, but they've still got to want to take that. We used to talk about this when we used to put new technology in. We'd spend millions on technology. The business case would say we'd get 10% more productivity. We'd throw that into the GP. No, the consultants just got 10% better at table tennis. Or they spent 10% more time on Facebook. So without management of that, it's great. Do we make people's lives easier? Give them a 4-day week, 3-day week? That's typically not how it's worked. People want the most out of everyone for 5 days. So I think as well, just to add to my previous point, those managers and leaders that are able to manage the increase in efficiency to turn that into numbers are going to be the winners.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Andy, if anyone's interested to learn more about the required process or the program in general, where's the best place they can find you?
So thanks for bringing up the website. Go to required.com. You'll get to see what we do. Required is a community that you're more than welcome to join. Just click the button. We're broken down into effectively a series of groups so that people are relevant. Our founder group is for solo recruiters and startups, so typically 1 to 5 heads. So people just getting going or people want a boutique business. Our growth is for people who are scaling up. They've got past that point and they're hiring staff. They're going through those growing wins and growing pains. And then we've got our enterprise group, which is 50 heads plus. So generally a lot of talk there around scale, territories, growing up, selling the business. We welcome people to come. It's a free to join community. We have a Acquired Plus, which is our training and leadership platform, but for the basic network access is free. Come join the party.
I love it, Andy. Well, it was such a pleasure having you on today. Super excited to keep working with the Required team and excited to maybe join your podcast one of these days too.
Yeah, likewise. Definitely come back on. And as I say, we've really enjoyed working with you guys at Quill, and the growth you've had is phenomenal. It was great to meet you guys in London as well at the expo. Great to see what a great time you had in London as well. It was when you meet people and it's the first time they've come to London, it was fantastic just to talk about their experience. So great. And catch up soon.
Catch up soon, Andy. Appreciate it.